Welcome back everybody to my Angular tutorial and continuing with my little series regarding data binding. Pop quiz. What were the first two types of binding that I went over in the previous video? If you guessed interpolation and property binding, I will give you a virtual Bitcoin. Just kidding. Too much is big. Bitcoin's 5,000 now, so it's too expensive. But let's continue on with binding, and I'm going to talk about class binding. Now, class binding has to do with CSS, and when you want to bind in Angular to a particular class variable to dynamically populate a class, you can do it two ways. The first way is by using the Angular attribute called class. You wrap it in brackets so that Angular can recognize that it is coming from the component. It's binded from the component model. And what you would do is, for this particular class, this is my HTML file here, I will pass in a variable name called my custom class. So my custom class, if I go back to my TypeScript file, which is my component model, is a variable of type string, and the value is called blue box. Can you guess what blue box represents? That's right, it does represent a class name, which means that blue box has been defined as a class in my CSS, my samplebind.css. I also defined another class called red text, which you'll see in a little bit why I did that as well. Once I defined my variable, and obviously I have my class, then what's going to happen is this will render the class that's binded from this particular variable name. You could do it that way. You can dynamically populate it, or what you could do as well is you can create a decision type logic with your classes. For example, on line 12, what I'm doing is I'm actually saying class.redText. So this represents my actual class name. So I am statically putting in the actual class name, and when I put the class name, I have to pass in if I'm actually going to render it or not. And the way I would do this is I would create a Boolean variable called isTrue, which is binded here to either a true or a false. So if it's true, then I will render this red text class, which is that. So let's take a look at the page itself. So right now we do have the blue box that I drew, and then we did paint my text with red text. If I go back and I change the value here to false, my red text should actually go away. I'm going to save all. And there's the example here. The red text went away because as we render this red text, this is actually going to be false. So this tells Angular to not render the red text class. That's simple class binding in a nutshell. Now, you can also do style binding. And style binding is similar. It's similar to class binding. I'll show you an example real quick. In the style binding, it's similar. So I commented out my code for the class. You have a style.border, so you'd say style dot whatever your style name is, and then you put in a value for that particular style. So for example, this bind here is similar to saying something like this. In HTML, which means that my border is a variable that's binded from the model, and then this value will be replaced over here, and the HTML that we render would be this. And we can also, so that's for the border. So, and then we can also pass in a Boolean with a particular style name. So for example, here, I actually have a conditional expression, a ternary operator, that says that if the, what I'm going to pass in a style.color. So again, it's style equal. So this is the same thing as saying like that. And but now for the value, the color, it's either going to be blue or forest green, depending on what the value of two colors is. Two colors is a variable that's binded from my model that is a Boolean, which means that right now currently it's true, and because it's true, then blue will be rendered. If I change it, which I created a function called change color, and change color will just reset it to the opposite of what it currently is. It's just going to toggle it, which is right here, defined over here. This will now become false, and it'll be forest green. Now remember, when you write this out, if you are doing an example for this, make sure that you do put your color names in single quotes. So if you put a style name, style value for a style name, make sure you put it in single quotes. Okay, so let me get rid of this, and I'll just save all, and we can take a look at the actual product. So here we go. So this is hey there, right? So hey there is my border, which is the 1 pixel solid black, right? Which is what I defined at the model level, 1 pixel solid black for the value of my border variable. And then the color is going to be blue because initially when a component loads, the two colors variable is going to be blue. And that's what it is. So, and then if I click on this now, which you're going to see in a second, it will give you the opposite, and then it will change the color value for that style. And you see that how it changed to forest green. And I do this, changes to blue, and it can toggle back and forth. Simple as that. Class binding, style binding, very, very easy, but very flexible because you can control this at the component level up to the UI. And remember, we're still doing one-way binding, which means that we are binding the model variables to the UI. Model variables to the UI. Thanks for looking at my video. Stay tuned for the last video of data binding in this mini series within my whole Angular course, which I will go over two-way binding with ng model. Thanks again. Don't forget to subscribe. Love all you guys. I thank you for listening to my videos, and I hope that you do get something out of this. See you on the next video.